Why is it that when the Bills defense is a top 10 defense, borderline top 5 defense for the first 13 weeks of the season, Bobby Babich gets all this credit for what he's doing? But the minute they have a bad game, and they had a poor game, it's Sean McDermott's fault again on the defense. That is not the formation that the Bills run when they run a Josh Allen QB sneak that has worked 95% of the time this season. Go back and look at it. That's not the play. That's not the formation. Daquan has said it before. Football comes down to a man whooping another man. And the Bills got whooped. 3, not sacks, hits on Matt Stafford. That's it. That's not going to win you games, and that is my concern. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel presented by Connors and Ferris. Dan Fates here with my thoughts, my overreactions to everybody else's maybe overreactions to the Bills' loss to the Rams yesterday. Had some time to sleep on it, kind of gotten the temperature of the room. I know I had a little snippet in the blog that Mike and Jenna did from LA, but maybe I just have a couple of more thoughts that I wanted to put out there. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the video. These are just some of my thoughts from the game. Taking some time to digest it, running on 3 hours of sleep. The girls are at school, daycare, and with the grandparents, so I had a couple of minutes. And maybe this is just my way of going a little stir crazy as a girl dad, loving it, but it's just nice to kind of come out here and talk about maybe what I saw from the game yesterday. Maybe you don't like it. That's fair, but please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Drop a comment in below with some of my thoughts. All right. So the Bills lost yesterday, and everybody goes back to, oh, here we go again. This is just another classic waste of an amazing Josh Allen game. And I said that in the blog yesterday with Mike and Jenna. If you haven't seen that, go and check that out. But I also come away from that game not really freaking out all that much. And for everybody that says, oh, the Bills defense and all of these things, my first point is this. Why is it that when the Bills defense is a top 10 defense, borderline top 5 defense for the first 13 weeks of the season, Bobby Babich gets all this credit for what he's doing? But the minute they have a bad game, and they had a poor game. Absolutely. No question about it. It's Sean McDermott's fault again on the defense. So Bobby Babich gets all the praise. Sean McDermott gets all the blame when the defense is going well. If you think that Sean McDermott has his hand in every single call, offensively and defensively, I don't know what to say. I'm pretty confident to know that he doesn't. There's 25 seconds that the play caller gets to talk into the linebacker or the quarterback. And if you think Sean has enough time to hear the play call, change it, get back on the headset, and then relay a different play to either Brady to tell Josh or Babich to tell Bernard, it just doesn't happen. That's not how this works. Sean is no longer calling the plays. He may have more involved in the game plan during the week, and he may have more insight as drive to drive, but Sean McDermott doesn't have his hand necessarily in every single play going, no, don't do that, do something else. So that's my one thing. And I get it. Sean McDermott has been rightfully criticized for his late game management before in the past, and that's fine. And I get it. And we've always come on here, and I've always been open and honest. And I feel like Sean McDermott is a top 5 coach, and I've been some kind of defender or apologist to him. And I thought I would have used my timeouts earlier. So I do have a concern, and I'll get to that in a second. But I would have maybe used my timeouts before the 2-minute warning, before the Rams scored the touchdown to go up 9, those kind of things. Maybe. And I'm not sure who called the QB sneak, whether that was a Josh check. I know he said that was the play that was called. Whatever you want to say, I think using the timeout there was the right decision, because 15 seconds conservatively probably would have burned off, like Sean said after the game, of getting everybody up off the pile and then trying to run another play. Do you save time? Maybe. You're also banking on getting a stop at the other end, fielding a punt. All of those things are fair. I understand that. But if you're upset about the defense, I'm not overly concerned. That was just a game that Matt Stafford and Puka Nacua were dialed in. Matt Stafford is a borderline Hall of Famer. Puka Nacua is a arguably top 5 wide receiver when healthy, and he was pretty damn healthy the other day. Okay. I didn't think, and Baldy did some breakdowns and all these things. I thought there were a lot of times where there was great coverage. Taron Johnson on Puka Nacua on the 3rd and 10. Stafford throws the ball before Puka's even turned his head. Taron's in his back pocket, and the guy Puka makes an unreal catch. The Bills, for everybody that said they had to make adjustments, the Bills did. The Bills did everything they could. They ran zone, they ran man, they blitzed, they sent Taron, they sent Bernard, they sent Milano. Nothing got there. The front four was dominated. That is my concern. The front four of this team. Because for everybody that does have a concern about here we go again, I understand, because yesterday felt like that Bengals playoff game from a few years ago where Joe Burrow got to stand there and was untouched and had all the time in the world. That's what Matt Stafford had. And eventually, at some point, Daquan has said it before, football comes down to a man whooping another man. And the Bills got whooped on their defensive line yesterday. 3, not sacks, hits on Matt Stafford. That's it. That's not going to win you games, and that is my concern. Because the Rams' offensive line is fine. They're getting healthier, I get that, but their line has been banged up a lot this year. They're maybe a top 13 offensive line, and if you can't get pressure on that kind of an offensive line, bad news coming. The Detroit Lions have the best offensive line in football, and if you can't get pressure on Jared Goff, what you saw yesterday is going to happen again next week in Detroit. Because Jared Goff and Matt Stafford, when they have time to throw, can stand in the pocket and will pick you apart. Any average quarterback with that much time to throw will pick you apart. And that's what we saw. Great throws beat great coverage. And that's what we saw against the Rams. So if I'm Taron Johnson and I'm Christian Bernard and I think I got pretty good coverage, I'm going back to the huddle going, hey, Greg, where are you, man? You got to get there. Hey, Ed, Daquan, Vaughn. That's my concern. I have a legitimate concern, and that's not necessarily all on Sean McDermott or Bobby Babbage. They got to find some kind of pressure. And this has been the bugaboo of this Bills team for the last few years. So that is where I have a legitimate concern. But the Bills did everything they could defensively. They played zone, they played man, which when the Rams run those bunch sets, and I'm not trying to be some all-22 guy on here, but for everybody that says we don't know what we're doing, or if you comment in like you guys don't watch the film and all these things, when the Rams run those tight bunch sets near the line of scrimmage, it is very, very borderline impossible to play man. You're going to grab, you're going to have to hold, there's crossing patterns, you're going to get flagged. It's too tough to play man when they run those bunch sets. It causes too much confusion with man. That's why they play zone. They tried to blitz to get extra pressure because the front four wasn't getting there. It got picked up. The Bills got their asses handed to them at the line of scrimmage. And one thing Sean McDermott has always preached since the time that he has been in there is they need to win the line of scrimmage. And they didn't last night in LA. So I have concerns about the pass rush. That's the one thing I take away from this game. But I think once again, in my opinion, and you can disagree or not, Sean McDermott catching strays for the timeout call, I understand it, but I won't defend the 9 players on the field at the end of the game. Inexcusable. Codrington not even catching the ball. Inexcusable. That is all on Matt Smiley. That's on Sean McDermott. I totally understand that. But the punt block is Reed Ferguson just got run over. He got pancaked. I don't know what coaching can really do there. Like some of these things come down to a point where it's guys have to make plays on the field. And they didn't. And that happens. I made the comparison. Dallas Braden is a pitcher who threw a perfect game. He is not a very good pitcher in the MLB history. He played, but he had one game where he was really hot. And if you give enough time to good quarterbacks and good wide receivers, they will beat you. This was an example of a man whooping another man, and defensively, the Bills didn't do it. And for everybody that wants to talk about late game clock management by Sean McDermott, I understand. I'm not going to try and defend that. I don't think it was a massive turning point. I don't think it was a massive difference. At one point, the Rams had a winning percentage of 95%. So if the Bills would have saved a timeout, kicked it deep, the Rams punt with 20 seconds left, you got a shot. if you force the 3 and out, I'm not saying there, but what does it raise it from 5 to 9% for a chance to win? What about the other 58 minutes where you got dominated? It's easy to look at the end of the game and say they should have done this, they should have done this. They got their asses handed to them for 58 minutes before that. So Josh was great, MVP by far. But for everybody that says the Bills aren't doing justice to Josh Allen and they can't get it done, this is the first game where the Bills defense just didn't have it. And the reason, and I understand the PTSD that kicks in, is because this is what we saw in a playoff game when they couldn't get to Patrick Mahomes, and Josh was spectacular in the 13 seconds game. When you give quarterbacks that much time, good quarterbacks, playoff caliber quarterbacks that the Bills will face in the postseason, and you can't pressure him, and you can't get him off his spot, and you can't do that with 4 or 5 guys, that's a concern. And that's on Vaughn, that's on Greg, that's on Daquan, that's on Ed. That's my concern that I took away from that game. Because I think that Bobby Babich, just one of those days. That was my takeaway. I came out of that game defensively. Oh, they gave up 44 points, wasted a Josh Allen performance. One of those games. And I know Colin Cowherd and everybody can go, Josh Allen had all these yards. And guess what? In those games, he wasn't very good. In games that he's thrown for 300 yards, he has a losing record. That's kind of how football works. Normally, when a quarterback throws for over 300 yards, a lot of the time, it's because his team's behind. It's like the dumb stat you hear when you say, when a team runs the ball 30 times, their winning percentage is 80%. That's because they're running out the clock. Don't nitpick stats just to prove a narrative. And I get it. This is the overreaction to it. This is the overreaction to Sean wasted another great performance by the Bills and all of these things. And I just don't think that's necessarily the case. I am concerned about the pass rush when it comes to everything else. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm like a 2. I think that was just one of those games where Matt Stafford and Puka Nacua were just dialed in. They threw everything they could at him. So I give Babich credit for throwing zone, blitzes, all of these things that he could. Tried man. It just didn't work. That kind of stuff happens. So it comes down to a man whooping another man, and the Bills got whooped. And Josh Allen did everything he could to try and make it a really competitive game. It happens. But let's not overreact to this Bills defense stinks. This team stinks. Josh Allen can't do it. Josh Allen has no help. Earlier in the year, we were talking about Josh Allen being the MVP, but his numbers were not that great because everybody else around him was great. Tom Brady talked about it before the broadcast. The Bills defense is good because the sum of the parts are greater than the individual. It's just one of those days. And I don't know if this makes you feel any better or not. I just came on here because I wanted to kind of defend Babich while also put some blame on Babich because Sean seems to be getting the blame for when the defense is bad, but Babich gets the credit for when the defense is good. But when the Bills struggle to get after the quarterback and they will face better offensive lines, that's a concern of mine. They need to be able to get pressure on the quarterback because they will face top 10 offensive lines in the playoffs because normally the best offensive lines lead to being a playoff caliber team. So they got to figure that out. But besides that, I'm not really going to overreact to the overreaction of what we saw against the Rams. Fun game. Josh was great. I don't know about the play call. And I'll just say this. Either Joe Brady made a mistake, as my TVs go off behind me. All right. And in 3, 2. And one last thing on the QB sneak on 1st and goal with like those 50 seconds left in the last drive. I don't know what the thought process was, whether it was Joe Brady making that call or whether it was Josh checking at the line. And I understand Josh said he did his best to execute the play that was called. But when Sean talks about, and he's very, very specific, when Sean talks about, he was asked about it earlier this week or a few weeks ago about when to go for it. and Josh being so good at 4th and 1, but understanding there's a difference between 4th and 1 and a long 4th and 1. And when it's 4th and almost 2, because Sean said they went with their best 4th and 1 play. And I think it was almost 4th and 2. And I'll say this, that is not the formation that the Bills run when they run a Josh Allen QB sneak that has worked 95% of the time this season. Go back and look at it. They normally don't have Zach Davidson in motion coming to push Josh Allen from behind. That's not the play. That's not the formation. So I don't know if it was a check at the line. I don't know. I don't know if we ever will hear the answer. And obviously, the message post-game was that it is what it is. We didn't execute the play. That's what was called. But that's not the formation that the Bills run a Josh Allen QB sneak like they have so successfully for the entire season. So that's just my thought. Timeouts aside, maybe they could have handled them a little better. I get it. If you understand your criticism, I will not defend the timeouts because I'm not 100% sure of what the correct way is. And I won't defend 9 players on the field for a blocked punt attempt at the end of the game or Codrington not catching the ball as time expired. I will not defend those things. Besides that, just one of those days. All right. Thanks for listening. Just kind of want to get some things off my chest and talk to you. Appreciate it as always. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. It's presented by Connors and Ferris. Mike and Jenna will hold down the fort for one more week. They will be heading to Detroit. Dad duty continues. I appreciate all the kind words. We'll catch you next time here on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel presented by Connors and Ferris.